Okay, everybody, it's John again from Gaspers here. We've got the second video on the brakes on this 1941 American LaFrance 500 series. As you can see, we've got the front wheels together here, and the front brakes in this thing are the same adjusting procedure as the rear brakes. I didn't show the front brakes. They're pretty self-explanatory. If you've ever worked on an older truck, they're a spring with two shoes, and you've got the two adjuster cams on the heel of the shoe, and you have the two adjuster cams on the toe of the shoe. And I'm going to go through the adjustment procedure back here on the rear brakes. So the last video we had everything taken apart, and now we've got everything put back together. You can see we've put a quick coat of paint on there, just a semi-gloss black, after we clean the backing plate, just to get the junk off there. You should really do that if you're going to redo your brakes. And of course we had the wheel cylinders rebuilt. We rebuild wheel cylinders here. We don't go and buy this stuff from the auto parts stores if we can help it, because it's just better to get them sleeved. They last longer. They don't have problems with rust and stuff inside. They're stainless steel sleeved or they're Braun sleeved, either one. I believe these are stainless, so you'll never have a problem for a long time. And we get the shoes rebuilt. You cannot get new shoes. Don't throw your shoes out. If you do, you're out of luck. You have to get them redone. So we go to a company called All Frictions in Portland, Connecticut. They do a fantastic job on brake shoes for old trucks, from a little garden tractor all the way up to a giant crane. They do it all. So if you've got any shoes you need to get redone, you might want to think about calling All Frictions in Portland, Connecticut. So, but anyway, we'll have a link in there to their site as well in the video. So when you're putting these back on, you've got to put there's a washer that goes in behind the shoe on each one of these posts, on all four posts, and you got to make sure that washer's on first before you put the shoes on. It goes the reverse of how you took it off, of course. And the bottom here, you take the nuts off on the back side here of the backing plate. See if I can get the light back here. You got the nuts down here on the back of the backing plate. Those are, I put new lock washers. Always use new lock washers. Those always break. Old lock washers will fail. Don't put them back on. They will fall off, and then this thing comes loose, and then you've got loose brakes and problems. So we put new lock washers on there and put the nuts back on, and then you put the outer washers on. The outer washers and retainers here. The washer here is available from NAPA. The part number is 11233, and the retaining horseshoe here, this little retaining clip that holds everything together, is available from NAPA, and that is 4395, number 4395. So we'll put a link to that in the description, just so if you're working on these old brakes, you can get that right off the shelf. If your old ones don't work. These were in great shape. We reused a bunch of them. Some of them were broken. We replaced them, but there's no reason not to reuse those if they're in good condition. So we did all that. So what you want to do is, on your cams down here, there's a little dot on the end of the cam here. I don't know if you can see this or not. There's a small little prick punch right there. Those dots should be facing towards each other like this when you go to get started. That's your start point, okay? And if you can't see those on the inside of the shoes, sometimes they're not prick punched on the inside. They're always prick punched on the other side, on the end of the cam where the flat is. You can put the wrench on. You'll see on the end there's a dot there, and it's a corresponding dot to this one. And so you can see it on the outside or the inside, either way. Sometimes they're on the inside like this one, but most of the time it's just on the outside. So you make sure the little dots are pointing towards each other, and you make sure that these cams up here, your toe cams, the ones down here are your heel cams, and this is your toe cam out here. You want to make sure these are all the way retracted, okay? Like they are now, so the shoes can come in as close together as possible, all right? And then you're ready to put the drum on. Now, the drum, if you've never done one of these, in order to, we stuck that back on. This is actually an early Ford seal, the same as a 1.5 or 2 ton truck seal. It happens to be. So Timken decided to use the same seal as Ford that day when they were designing this particular axle. So you re-grease your, repack your wheel bearing in there, inspect it, make sure it's not bad. If it's bad, you got to replace it, and you got to replace the race. But if they're good, usually they're good. You repack that bearing. If you don't know how to do that, go on YouTube and see videos on how to repack a wheel bearing. You do it in your hand. It's pretty easy. And then down inside is a lot of times people don't do. You got to pack grease down on the inside diameter of this hub down there. You pack grease in there, and in case when this thing gets a little warm, that grease can flow and it'll go down onto your bearing and help it out. So there's a grease fitting on these things on the outside. There's a hole for it, and you're supposed to grease them periodically according to the manual. But I packed that full of grease ahead of time, so that's done, and it'll help flow down onto the bearing if it needs it. So that's how you do that. Now we're going to install the drum on the wheel here, so I'm gonna have to set the camera down for that. If you're a little guy and you can't pick that drum up, make sure you don't try to do that yourself. Make sure you get some help from somebody. These are very heavy. I think the drum is about, it's got to be about 75, 80 pounds. It's pretty heavy, maybe heavier. But so you get the drum on there. Now we have to repack the wheel bearing for the outside here and install that and these rings down here. Okay, so this is a grease device, a greasing device here that I bought online. It's a little expensive, but for what I do, it's really makes things way faster. I'm doing this every day. If you want to buy one of these, you can get a cheap one. They're plastic. That probably is going to work for most people. But if you're doing a lot of this, you're going to want to buy the good one. And I'll provide a link in the description to this. Okay, so we're going to install the bearing here. Come on, get in there. There it goes. You gotta push that thing all the way in there. Sometimes it fights a little bit, but you gotta put it in. Sometimes, once in a while, you have to use a punch and a hammer and just gently tap the inside race of the bearing to get it to get started. You go back and forth gently, but do not hit that hard. If you have to hit something hard to put that on, something's wrong. You gotta take it back apart again. Okay, so the rest of this is pretty simple. You put the spacer on like this. This is the bearings, the nut spacer. Goes on, and then you got the nut that goes on here. Now you got to get a bearing, wheel bearing nut socket and put it on there. We've got that from the other video. I'm going to grab that and tighten this up. So you got to tighten this, okay, until this you're going to tighten this until you get this wrench won't move anymore, okay? It's going to be completely tight, and then you're going to be if you try to move the drum right now, it won't turn. It's stuck, okay? So you're going to want to back off a little bit until the drum can move smoothly. All right. Okay, so I've got it so the drum moves. There's a little bit of drag on the drum from the shoes, but the bearing, you want to make sure that axially in and out this way is not going to, there's no movement, and I can't feel any. And you're going to want to make sure that this turns, you know, where the shoes aren't grabbing. You want to make sure it turns easy, and that's turning nice right there. So that's a good spot for me to install the next plate. You got to put this locking plate on. It fits in this little slot. Sorry, this is hard to do when you're holding a camera in your hand. Feel like I'm fumbling here. Usually not like this when I'm working on the rest of it. And then take some time to grind off the you know, this is somebody used the chisel to remove this in previous times. That's a common thing. If you don't have the right socket, I really encourage you to buy the right one. But if you don't have the right one, you can use a chisel, and you just got to dress this up afterwards so the socket fits on, and you don't have a piece fall off, a little piece of metal fall off in there later. So let's go do that. Okay, that's a lot better. Now the socket's going to fit on here correctly. So you put this nut on. Now this is just a lock nut, so you're going to want to tighten this pretty tight. You don't want this to be, you know, just barely tight. You want to have some tension on it. You don't want anything coming loose here. Okay, so I'm going to set the camera down, tighten this, and what we're going to do is bend this this metal tab behind here out this way, and it locks against one of these flats and keeps the nut from coming loose, and then that's it. So sometimes these are tough to bend. I've got this little lady slipper here. You can get in here and bend this out. It makes it a lot easier. If you don't have one of these, you can get them at Harbor Freight or online, whatever. This is a Cornwell I bought years ago, but you can get in here and pull this back. Well, maybe I can't get in there. Wow. Boy, it's tight in here. We'll grab this end here. Okay, we've got that tab bent, and that's it. So we're ready to put the axle on. That's pretty easy. You put you know, adhesive around here, and you shove the axle on and bolt it on with the cones and new lock washers and the nuts. So I'm not going to bother showing that. That's pretty easy. But the adjustment procedure is, you know, on these is a little interesting. You got this little window right here, and this is your brake adjustment window, and if you swing around, you can see the, I'm actually going to put the light on the brake drum. You can actually see inside. It's hard to see in there with lights and cameras. I'm not that great, but I hope you can see. When we spin it around, you can see the shoe in there. There it is. And you can see the end of the shoe right there. You want to come in about 1.5 inches or so, or an inch on the shoe, and you can take a feeler gauge and put it in there. Where's the feeler gauge? Here it is. You can take a feeler gauge like this, and you stick it in here, and you go all the way in, and you can use this to adjust, turn your adjuster in the back with the wrench or your socket or whatever you have, and go until this just touches, and then you're going to go and switch down and move the heel of the shoe down below. You swing this around, this drum, you rotate it around, you do the heel of the shoe, and repeat that procedure back and forth until you get, I use a 10 thousandths shim. I do 10 thousandths here and 10 thousandths down in the bottom of the shoe, and then you know the shoe is concentric with the drum, and your brakes are all set to go. So I'm going to go perform that adjustment now. Okay, so I adjusted the upper, the toe of the shoe out until it touched the drum. The drum's just rubbing. And then the heel of the shoe down here, I'll try to get the light in here better. I apologize for this, guys. This is hard for me to do by myself here, holding everything. But these two adjustments, you want to, I don't know if you can see this or not. I'm going to try to hold this camera. It's hard. But guess I'll have to lay down here. You're going to want to turn these adjusters here. You're going to want to rotate this adjuster like this until you relieve the tension on the shoe. So the dot is on the inside of this right here. It's going to rotate down this way Okay, that's the direction you're going to want to go. And then over here on this one, you're going to want to rotate down this way. It just takes a very small amount. Do not go and turn this thing a long distance. It only goes maybe a couple degrees, 2 degrees, 3 degrees, and it will make a gigantic difference with a brand new shoe. So you just want to turn it very little bit at a time, and you should have tension on the top of the shoe, a little bit rubbing, and then this should relieve the tension when you turn this. So I moved it a little bit. Let's see what happens. Yeah, see, it relieved the tension. Okay, now I'm going to go back in, and I'm going to tighten the top adjustment again, and until it touches, and then I'm going to go back and repeat the process down here. And then if this does not relieve anything, you keep rotating it in that direction I showed you, and it gets tight again. You back off, back to where you were, and then lock it down. That's it. That's all you get. Okay, guys, so after much cursing and swearing and trials and tribulations, I got this thing pretty good. You know, it's difficult to get in this little window here to have, you got to have a long feeler stock to get in there. The feeler gauge that I have is barely long enough to get in there to grab where the shoe is touching. So it made it difficult, but I've got it adjusted pretty good. It's, you know, you're never going to get these things perfect the way they do it from the factory. They have a jig they put on there before they even put the drum on, so it's perfect when it goes on, and it doesn't need to be adjusted. It's already done. So, but you use this window and you adjust. You go back and forth 17,000 times, and you get this thing adjusted concentric, and then with the drum, and then you tighten the those nuts in the bottom while holding those flats on those back adjusters. The top adjusters are spring-loaded. They just sit there. That's it. They don't get tightened or anything. They're just friction holds them in place, and you just put your axle in, and that's it. And put your wheels on. So that's it here for the brakes. We're just going to tighten up those nuts in the back and call it good. So hopefully this video has helped some people with doing some brakes here. Putting things together. I know it's kind of quick. It's very hard for me to film by myself doing brakes underneath. One of these days I will do a video of this on an axle that's out of the truck, up on a bench somewhere, and we'll go through the whole thing in super detail, and then you can just translate down to working on your truck. But anyway, remember, if you like, subscribe, and keep that old iron running.